First, you duck, and then you cover. And very tightly, you cover the back of your neck, your face. It looks something like this. There's a bright flash, brighter than the sun, brighter than anything you've ever seen. If you were not ready, did not know what to do, it could hurt you in different ways. It could knock you down hard, or throw you against a tree or a wall. It is such a big explosion, it can smash in buildings and knock signboards over. It's a bomb. Duck and cover.
Remember what to do, friends. Now tell me right out loud. What are you supposed to do when you see the flash?
Would you be willing to bet everything that you have on the presumption that a nuclear war would never break out? Well, it doesn't matter, because you're already making that bet. Every day that nuclear weapons are prepared to launch, we're betting our lives that nobody would have the foolishness to launch one of them. Now, they're already on their way to being decreased in number, but it may take a lifetime to totally eradicate them. Nuclear missiles should be abolished by all nations who own them. The risk of war today would be catastrophic compared to what it was back when the missile was first invented. And the risk of accidental detonation is even a bigger threat. And even a third bigger threat is the threat of a stolen missile being used for nuclear terrorism. Barack Obama has a policy of non-proliferation, which means no testing or development of new weapons. This is a step in the right direction, but it's not a permanent solution to the problem. His intentions are good, but it could take an entire lifetime to complete this goal. And in our lifetime, several presidents will take office. Each of them will probably have different views on the policy. So this must be handled quickly, efficiently, and carefully. Now, the bomb test footage I showed you earlier was relatively small compared to today. First came the atom bomb, but after that came the hydrogen bomb, which was more powerful and destructive. But on October 30th, 1961, the most powerful bomb ever created was tested by the Russians. It was called the Tsar bomb, meaning king of all bombs. It had the force equivalent to 50 million tons of TNT. That's over 3,000 times more powerful than the first bomb I showed you. And the bomb itself was approximately the length of this room. Now, the nuclear bomb, its effect, goes beyond the blast zone. You could say the lucky ones are the ones who die in the blast, because outside is the destruction of the blast wave, but more importantly, people are blinded within a 10-mile radius, whether or not their eyes are open, according to informationclearinghouse.info. If a nuclear war were to happen, major cities would be the first to go, and yes, I'm talking about Philadelphia. And depending on the size of the blast, we, standing here right now, would either be crushed to death or only blinded, and then get cancer or some sort of other symptom. But the most important symptom of this is the cancer, and also there can be hair loss and other disgusting mutations from this. But the worst pain imaginable from a nuclear blast would be the skin actually peeling off of your body. Kind of like if you got a sunburn, except while you're standing like 10 miles away from a heat that's as powerful as the sun. Now, a major threat that nuclear weapons present is the threat of accidental detonation, which means if someone accidentally launched a missile. Now, I know, the launch system is much more complicated than just a big red button on the president's desk. But according to nuclearfiles.org, there have been well over 20 incidents in which a nuclear war was almost started due to an error of some sort. Now, there are movies such as Dr. Strangelove, Failsafe, and Crimson Tide, if you've ever seen those, in which some of these situations are illustrated. There are a few ways that a war could start. False alarm. unauthorized launch, communication failure, terrorist attack, escalation of costly or bloody war, preemptive strike, meaning striking before they do it to us, compensation for lack of powerful military, an irrational leader, or mistaken missile identity. These are just a few. Now, some people say it's possible to forgive a country for sending a nuclear missile at us. Not according to a concept born in the Cold War called MAD, which stands for Mutually Assured Destruction. If a missile is launched at us, our systems automatically launch back. Now, war used to be a major threat with Russia, but that has mostly subsided, and the new major threat is nuclear terrorism. It's tricky because Russia, that was a country, but terrorists, they don't have a country. So if they were to nuke us, who would we have to nuke back? So, do missiles even help us in this situation? The answer is no, they don't. In fact, if there were no missiles, the chances of a terrorist getting one of these weapons decrease significantly. Because where would they buy or steal one? They would have to make them themselves, which would be much more conspicuous and costly. But even if they did manage to do that, it wouldn't matter if the following plan was put into place. Back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan came up with a plan called Star Wars. It was basically a peace shield made up of satellites, and it was to defend against any Russian missiles launched at us. Now, the Russians stopped it from happening because it would be too big of a threat for them to have this sort of defensive advantage. So, basically, here's a way to think of what we're doing right now instead of that. Right now, we're using missiles as our defense against missiles, which means we're basically using offense as our defense. Now, that's an effective strategy, but only if you're trying to win. And we're not trying to win a nuclear war. We're trying to get rid of the possibility of nuclear war. So what we should do is use defense as our defense. That way, nobody can be bombed. Basically, Barack Obama has given new life to this plan. Basically, he made a plan where all members of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, will get protection from satellites against nuclear missiles. I think this is a good plan, but it could be improved. I think that all countries, no matter if they're in a treaty with us or not, should get protection. That way, we can protect the entire world, and we could also be the good guys at the same time, maybe giving other countries one less reason to hate us. Now, if every country were under the protection, there would be several benefits. First of all, nuclear terrorism wouldn't be a threat. Rogue nations using nuclear missiles would also not be a threat. And wars could be fought without the worry of nuclear threats. Finally, because of this, other countries would feel safer to get rid of their nuclear missiles, thus eliminating them. Ronald Reagan once said, "I call upon those who gave us nuclear weapons to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace, to give us the means of rendering these nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete." Now, the risk of weapons far outweighs the benefits, if there are any to begin with. It was debatable whether or not they were necessary to end World War II. Now, an accident with nuclear weapons would mean the end of the world, quite literally. And any and all nuclear threats would be eliminated by a program that defends all countries. So at this point in time, nuclear missiles are it's hard to tell if nuclear missiles are under our control or if they have more control over us. We must sacrifice our superiority and settle our disputes with other nations, if only this once, for the good of all mankind. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, Ben, the way I'd like to do this, I'd like you to start to introduce the topic and give some of your background, and then see if can you shut that off?
Oh, sorry.